One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to do something a little bit different, something I've never done before. I'm here to do a series preview of an upcoming HBO series entitled Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. I got it in my head. Well, I didn't get it in my head. Actually, a friend of mine, Mike Fowler from the Cousin Cecil podcast, kind of recommended that I do a couple of things to kind of get the ball rolling on some series that I plan on covering in the near future. And, you know, for those of you who have been subscribed to this channel for a while, you know that sometimes I do these future state videos where I say, okay, these are the things that I'm going to be covering, so subscribe if you're interested in those sorts of things. But between what Mike Fowler said and my own general interest in this series, I figured it would be a good time for me to try something new and just go, okay, let me spend some time going over who's behind this show, what this show is about, and most importantly, why I've decided to cover it. You know, I kind of have a kind of brand of television show that I cover on this channel. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of all of HBO's work anyway, so I was definitely going to be covering anything that HBO plans on putting out, especially if they're putting it out on Sunday night where they keep their really good stuff. But also, in addition to that, though, I have a personal connection to this. Well, I was about to make myself sound way more important than I am. I don't have a personal connection to the Showtime Lakers. I just grew up in that era, and their dynasty was ended by my bad boy Pistons. So I'm very familiar with that era, and I'm hoping to see the Pistons beat the Lakers in this series. It would just be a nice new way to see my team knock off the Lakers from the 80s. But before I talk about that, I do want to get into some of the, I don't know, you might want to call it boring stuff, but this is the stuff that interests me because it kind of helps me determine whether or not I want to watch a show. And that revolves around who's involved in it and what do I know these people from. HBO pretty much has complete trust from me as far as the quality of the content that they put out. So I'm going to watch anything that HBO does, but because it's about the Showtime Lakers, and that's about that's the time when I started watching the NBA, so that's kind of, you know, I have my own personal connection to that era. I figured this would be a good time for me to not just talk about who all is involved in the show, but to give a little bit of insight into my personal connection to the content as well. But before that, I'm going to start with what you might want to call the boring stuff, which is me just kind of running down who all is involved in the show. So the show is created by Max Borenstein and Jim Hecht. I hope I'm saying that right, Hecht. Max Borenstein is credited as the creator of the series, as is Jim Hecht, and I'm going to talk about both of them, but Max specifically, he's credited as the creator of The Terror, which is a show that I haven't seen, but I've heard really good things about. And he also, when I was researching this, I found out that he did a 10-episode miniseries about Minority Report, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I think it came out in like 2002. Huge fan of this movie. And apparently he did a TV series that I had no idea about. It came on Fox on Mondays, apparently. I had no clue about this, but it starred Megan Good. I love that movie. Maybe if this show was good, I'm not gonna check it out. I'm not gonna go back to watch 10 episodes of a canceled TV series. But needless to say, I found that to be a little interesting. Even more interesting is Jim Hecht's credits because they're all essentially kids' films. He wrote a couple of Ice Age movies, including the most recent one. I don't even know if it's out yet. It's either out yet, it's either not out yet, or it just came out. And he also wrote a couple episodes of Fairly Odd Parents, among other things. The show is executive produced by Adam McKay and Max, and we all know Adam McKay from a number of projects. We're going to read a couple. He did Vice. He did The Big Short. He's also done writing and directing comedy films with Will Ferrell, all the ones that you know and love: Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, The Other Guys, all that kind of stuff. Apparently, I found this out while researching this video as well. He got into a falling out with Will Ferrell over this show because apparently Will Ferrell was originally supposed to play Jerry Buss, and he was replaced by John C. Reilly, and apparently this was unbeknownst to Will Ferrell that he was getting cut from this show, and it caused, I guess, an irreparable rift between the two, and I guess they're not cool anymore. But that was an interesting little tidbit to find out. So the show is based on a book, and I looked the book up on Amazon. It's called Showtime: Magic, Kareem, Riley, and the Los Angeles Lakers Dynasty of the 1980s. It's written by Jeff Pearlman, and it basically covers the ascension of the Showtime Lakers, which started with the drafting of Magic in 1979, and ends with essentially the disintegration of this dynasty, which, again, that really happened in 1989 when the Pistons beat them, when the Pistons swept them. But officially, I would say, I think it was around 1991 when Magic was diagnosed with HIV. There's also some interesting people brought in to direct on this show as well. I noticed Sally Richardson, who she now goes by Sally Richardson Whitfield, and I say now as if that recently happened. It could happen 15 years ago, and I wouldn't know. But I know her as Sally Richardson, beautiful actress. She's directing 2 episodes. McKay himself is directing an episode, and Jonah Hill is directing an episode. So that's interesting as well. I'm kind of wondering like what kind of tone this show is gonna have. Like looking at the trailer, it kind of looks like a mixture of like it could be season 4 of The Deuce, but but with like basketball as like the main topic. I don't know if it's gonna go heavy on like humor. I feel like it's not, but there's just the involvement of certain people. Like again, Jim Heck's got these kids movies on his credits. You've got Adam McKay with Will Ferrell and all the comedy stuff that they've done. And then a couple, Jonah Hill directing an episode. So like there's all kinds of different comedy things that are involved here. And I'm wondering if it's going to be more comedic in nature. I kind of hope not, but I feel like it's going to be a fairly serious chronicle of the rise and fall of the Showtime Lakers. But it's probably going to have some humor in it as well. But we'll see. And lastly, in addition to Max and Jim doing some writing, we also have Rodney Barnes, who shoulders, according to IMDb, the writing credits on 9 of the 10 episodes. Not solely, but he has a hand in 9 of the 10 episodes. And we've seen Rodney Barnes. I believe he also has comic credits to his resume as well. But he's done a whole lot of writing on all things good that are black. A ton of Boondocks episodes, the best ones. Everybody Hates Chris, My Wife and Kids. He did an episode of the Wu-Tang, an American Saga that's over on Hulu. So they've got an interesting collection of people involved in this show, between like the guy who did The Terror, the guy who wrote Ice Age, and a guy who wrote a bunch of episodes of the Boondocks, and executive produced by a guy who did both The Big Short and Anchorman. So we're kind of all over the place here. But before I wrap up like the kind of like boring stuff, I want to scroll here and tell you guys some of the actors who are playing roles in this, because there's a mixture of newcomers and a mixture of well-known names. Well-known names as far as actors go. For those of you who might not know too much about this era of the NBA, a lot of these names of these characters might not be familiar to you, but they are to me. And there's some pretty big name actors here. So we got John C. Reilly, I already mentioned, as Jerry Buss. Adrian Brody as Pat Riley. I'm curious to see that. I don't know if I don't know. That's a tough one for me to envision. Well, I saw him in the trailer, but his hair was long, and I'm only thinking of Pat Riley with like the slick back hair. Anyway, Sally Field as Jesse Buss, Michael Chiklis as Red Auerbach, Jason Segel as Paul Westhead, Wood Harris as Spencer Haywood. Is such a weird casting. Like, not weird in that Wood Harris can't play Spencer Haywood, but like just to see Wood Harris still doing stuff in 2022 when Wood Harris was doing fucking Above the Rim in like 94 or whatever. Wood Harris still doing stuff. I'm interested to see what he's going to look like now. Like, I feel like he still looks the same, though. And Mike Epps apparently makes an appearance or two as Richard Pryor. So that's going to be interesting. Both Quincy Isaiah and Solomon Hughes, who play Magic and Kareem, respectively, are newcomers. So we're going to get an opportunity to see how these guys fare in some pretty big roles on an HBO primetime series, playing colossal stars like Magic and Kareem. So that's kind of all the boring stuff out of the way. I'm going to talk a little bit about the show. I'm only 10 minutes in, and I'm going to wrap this up because it is just a preview, and I don't know jack shit about what's going to happen in this show. But it's just me kind of getting some feelers out there to see how what interest you guys might have in it, and to kind of just lay out some of my thoughts about the Lakers themselves specifically. So going back to 1979, I was not born yet, but The Lakers drafted Magic in 1979 out of Michigan State. I'm from Detroit, so you know Michigan State is close to our hearts here. It's about an hour and a half west of Detroit, and they also drafted, but not by the Lakers, was Larry Bird as well, who I know is also in this show, but the actor wasn't someone who I was familiar with, so I didn't put them as one of the familiar actors who are in the show. But apparently, the show's going to chronicle the rise of the Showtime Lakers, not just as a team on the court, because they were wildly successful in the 80s. They went to like 9 finals during that time span between when they drafted Magic and when the Pistons got them the fuck out the paint. It's gonna happen. Like when I cover all 10 of these episodes, there's gonna be shit talking probably every episode. It's gonna happen. It's whatever. They should have won in '88 too. So whatever. But they made, I believe, like 9 finals appearances. They won 5 titles. But not just is it worth talking about what they did on the court, but it's also worth talking about what they were like off the court. Because the Showtime Lakers weren't just called the Showtime Lakers because they were Showtime on the court. These dudes were celebrities, man. Like going to clubs, women everywhere. Like these were like big stars. And what interests me the most about this show is possibly being able to see a little bit of what it was like for them outside of the court, especially because at that time I was either too young to have been watching basketball or too young to be even interested in anything that might have been happening with these players off the court. So I'm interested in seeing that kind of stuff, and I'm mainly in it for it. Mainly in it for what I expect will be a pretty interesting sequence once we get to the point where things start to go left for them. You know, once they, like I said, in '88 they beat the Pistons, but they shouldn't have. In '89 they get swept by the Pistons. In '90 they didn't even make it to the finals in 1990, and then you get Magic's HIV situation, and I'm also assuming it's probably going to go a little bit past that, because that wasn't the end of Magic Johnson's story, but that was the end of the Showtime Lakers. So a whole lot of things to look into and to consider and to expect and to wonder about. But I'm really excited for this series. It's so interesting, all of the different names that have come together to put this out there and to put something out there about the Showtime Lakers, which hasn't been done yet. And you put this on the heels of the Last Dance documentary, and I think you have a chance for something to be pretty impactful, chronicling that time in the NBA that I feel is the most interesting. So that's all I got for this, and I will see you guys on or around March 6th to talk about the first episode. Till then, peace.